today on the Tearsheet Podcast.
And then, frankly, like we realized, okay, like if we actually can like put this wall saying we are business banking, period, it didn't land well actually, frankly, Zach, because basically this UX designer sitting and we work does not really identify as a business, or this photographer like having basically like planning photo sessions and photo shoots, like from basically high school seniors to kind of wedding photography, they wouldn't really call themselves a business.
Interesting.
Uh, and frankly, even honestly, like you wouldn't call yourself a freelancer ever in your life. Also, like, I mean, despite like we now like putting this like technical term on it in a sense. So that was honestly like a big learning lessons that like those guys, even starting from marketing positioning perspective, you can't really sell a business product and expect them to kind of even like find you in a sense, to be honest with you as well. So we realized actually that's why even auction today was like the only challenger bank in the US who offers this like personal and business banking under one roof.
Welcome to the Tearsheet Podcast. I'm Tearsheet Editor-in-Chief, Zach Miller. As more challenger banks launch, we're seeing the emergence of more and more niche offerings, serving a subset of users with distinct needs. Oxygen Bank, a challenger based in San Francisco, recognized that freelancers aren't being served well. These people don't identify as businesses, and yet they are in business. Founder and CEO of Oxygen, Hussein Ahmed, is one of the hardest working fintech CEOs. He joins us on the podcast to talk about why Oxygen essentially merged a business account with a personal account to serve this demographic. He talks about building and scaling a startup using talent across geographic boundaries, and what his plans are next for the upstart banking product. Hussein Ahmed is my guest today on the Tearsheet Podcast.
I'm Hussein Ahmed, the CEO of Oxygen, a digital bank in San Francisco.
And how did you get to this point? Why start a digital bank at this point in your career?
Yeah, that's an interesting question also, Zach. So I think actually kind of it was a personal pain also, Zach, kind of like myself. So originally from Egypt, kind of if I like back up like the whole story from the beginning, originally from Egypt, uh, like grew up basically kind of like in Egypt as well, between Egypt and UAE, and then ended up actually like starting a first company back in Egypt. After that exit, decided to come to the US. Then at that point, Zach, to join a grad school. So specialized in computer science. So got my master and PhD in computer science from Virginia Tech, and then ended up in Seattle, actually working for Amazon for some time as a engineering manager, and then quit Amazon, started a second company which was targeted to SMBs as well, kind of thing, was Auction. And then after that exit, then Zach, I kind of basically went back again to school to UC Berkeley, Haas, kind of, and that's kind of how I also stumbled into this like gap in the market. That kind of we're like set up to solve, which is kind of I was working out of a WeWork location, and at that point, Zach, like basically around you are like photographers, real estate agents, UX designers, engineers, data scientists, and then kind of when I started seeing my experience working with banks, also at that point, Zach, it was basically you walk into a branch, probably even like you yourself kind of led that life of like serial entrepreneur, kind of like not like 9 to 5 job. They basically look at you and like for them actually you are an unemployed person per se, because you can't really confirm income, you can't really like get an HR letter from a corporation. And again, like frankly, if you go to the business side of the house, then at that point, Zach, they say like, yeah, like where is your like AR and AP and like the whole corporate documents and corporate credit. So that's kind of when we realized, okay, like, you know what, this does not make sense like in 2020. And those guys are asking me now for like 3 years of tax returns to underwrite like a 15K loan kind of situation. So that was kind of basically the general idea then at that point, Zach, that I think there's an opportunity here that we can go after, especially given how the whole economy now is moving to become more Zach Millers in the space, frankly, than being like looking for this like internship and then a 9 to 5 job leading from there. So all these creators around, like from podcasters, YouTubers, influencers, designers, musicians, are basically deciding now more than ever before to lead that kind of a life. So our thesis was like, you know what, there is a big opportunity here to capitalize on that opportunity and build basically financial services built for that segment of a market.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Can we talk a little bit, Hussein, about let's not say Zach Miller's, but the Hussein Ahmed's need as an entrepreneur from a financial service provider?
Yeah, that's a very good question, honestly, Zach, because I think also that was, I think even that's why the incumbents are not really realizing like what would you need differently from somebody else, kind of thing, like why Chase is not enough, or like Wells, or even other digital
Hmm.
fintech kind of digital banks. So I think kind of realize quickly also that it originates from how do you identify as a business or as a personal account. And then frankly, like we realize, okay, like if we actually kind of put this wall saying we are business banking, period, it didn't land well actually, frankly, Zach, because basically this UX designer sitting in WeWork does not really identify as a business, or this photographer like having basically like planning photo sessions and photo shoots, like from basically high school seniors to kind of wedding photography, they
Hmm.
wouldn't really call themselves a business. Uh,
Interesting.
and frankly, even honestly, like you wouldn't call yourself a freelancer ever in your life. Also, like, I mean, despite like we now like putting this like technical term on it in a sense. So that was honestly like a big learning lessons that like those guys, even starting from the marketing positioning perspective, you can't really sell a business product and expect them to kind of even like find you in a sense, to be honest with you as well. So we realized actually that's why even auction today was like the only challenger bank in the US who offers this like personal and business banking under one roof. So basically you can come from either side. So if you are still getting started and getting out of art academy of like music and theater, you would come in typically, then Zach, honestly, what we imagine now from our learnings is that you would open a personal account, not a business account. And
Hmm.
then as you start progressing and becoming like a tier sheet kind of thing, and like basically an agency, a marketing agency, an influencer management company, you start progress and grow into that business account then eventually, in a sense of Zach. And the kind of what was even like mind blowing that some of them actually are really actually making good money, and like
Hmm.
it is a business operations, and yet you're not really calling yourself a business. So we started adding services to your point, Zach, of like why it's different. That actually basically from the personal account in auction, you can like literally answer 3, 4 questions, and we incorporate a company, LLC company for you on your behalf, nationwide in the US. So basically, we take you from this like one person, like one woman business kind of situation, to basically incorporating an LLC, and now basically nobody can go after you personally because you have this limited liability protection around you. You have better tax treatment as a company versus a person. So even including things like that, complementary services, not even like directly related to financial services, was in itself like perceived really well by the customers, like because like they even honestly opening legal Zoom or look at lawyer and like answering like this like 40-page wizard kind of thing in itself is intimidating. It's like, why would I do that? I'm just gonna use my Chase personal account to go by my business kind of slash personal life.
Hmm.
And then accordingly, what would end up happening then, like from our lesson also, exactly that basically those guys they would end up with this kind of commingling of funds between personal and
Hmm.
business. So now you start like basically like using dinner for like business funds for using dinners, and you're actually paying for WeWork and your car lease and all the stuff from your personal account and your family money, like not your business money. So being able also to have this like one button in the app then to switch between your personal life and business life, also Zach, is actually frankly in itself like a unique value prop that actually that you don't really have to have like a personal Chase and a business city and like try to like basically move money over like for like 3, 4, 5 business days between even yourself to yourself kind of situation.
Hmm.
So
So
that was
structurally,
another.
it's one account. You won't have to move accounts. It's even
It is
as you
actually
mature within the maturation, as that kind of journey that you described, Hussein, of starting out maybe just freelancing a little bit and then turning that into a real business. Like that one account will grow with you.
It is actually one, like I would say, honestly, one like user profile, if you will, then Zach on
Hmm.
auction. But basically, this profile is basically now hooked up to like a full personal checking account. Our banking partner is Bancorp, and on the business account, it is basically like a full business checking account. So they're like basically two like. Basically kind of like completely separate accounts, but yet from the app experience, then Zach, to your point, like basically they
Mm.
look at least like super like easy to switch between them, move money because even like it's one ledger obviously on auction. So we're not really gonna use really like ACH rails to move money between like Zach Miller personal and like basically Zach Miller like LLC kind of situation.
Hmm.
So that's how it makes it easy also, like because like even you're running on the same rails within the same bank. So there's no need basically when you call like frankly like picking up on City now, the way I used to call City, like basically I'm on the phone and talking to somebody and say like, yeah, but I have one more question about the business account. It's like, okay, hold off. Now I need to pass you over to another
Right.
organization
Right.
to answer your question. And you are basically starting from a game from scratch. Like, who are you? Can you verify? Like, seriously? So that's honestly how it was frustrating. Honestly, like even like for us, like the line between actually kind of separating your business and personal life is super blurry, honestly. Like it definitely should be there even legally, but to basically to build those walls between the two side lines of businesses in the bank, I think it's actually kind of backfiring as well, especially for that persona who are trying to basically still like do the right thing, splitting their business and personal and so forth, but not to have to deal with like all the whatever would come with from doing that in a sense.
It's so interesting because it's like the bank's silos manifest themselves for the customers in the scenario that you talk. And now as a customer, I have to carry that cognitive load that you guys have split up these functions. That's just really interesting the way you describe it. And so I just want to touch on something. We ran a piece on you and a day in the life. Our reporter Rivka Abramson kind of tracked you throughout the day, and I got a lot of comments after we published that saying like Hussein is like the hardest working guy in fintech. And so can you talk about, I guess, how you've structured teams internationally as you're building Oxygen and kind of what your day looks like in that sense?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Zach, actually, honestly, like I think it sounded better even like reading the article after because I'm so sorry. Actually, what was I was thinking basically? So so I think actually honestly like to your point, like frankly, like, even like the thinking of like the talent and skill set and basically again like the cost associated with that is even I think of like for example like as like between like Egypt, India, China, Israel, Europe, and like the whole situation like how many amazing talented people work for incredible multinational companies are basically you can tap into this talent then Zach if you can basically kind of be able to stay those like few hours later to like manage like time zone differences. So we got to the point okay, like why would we basically hire this like in a sense like monolith kind of thing team based in downtown San Francisco. You are paying much more higher salaries, even frankly not even getting some of the senior talent that you'd be able to poach here from like a Square or like a firm of those like fintechs. So now basically we're like poaching in Europe kind of thing from like Visa, like from even Russia, like from Tinkoff Bank in Russia. A lot of European kind of obviously players, Monzo and 26, Revolut. So honestly, like I think also the opportunity that comes from basically also like breaking those walls also lack of like having this like geo limitation like yeah I have to hire from the Bay Area compared like to yeah let's open it up like to Czech Republic to connect to Europe to Eastern Europe and so forth. I think in itself also like you bring amazing incredible people super smart talent and the thing honestly I think even there was actually maybe one comment also like a bit like how Revolut actually when they came to the US it was not that successful with the launch because like they were basically disconnected from the like typical American NSA per se. So basically, like when you open Revolut in the US here, you're still faced with this like dashboard of like how do you want to like do you want to exchange money? It's like why would somebody sitting in like Wisconsin or like Minnesota like transfer USD to euro kind of thing as the main function in the app? So that's also honestly like when you
That's a
get
good
to that
point.
even monolith kind of team to your point and Zach, you start like basically ending up with a room of full of like German or like French people or like basically British people, and you don't really have that mix of like all these kind of experiences, backgrounds, context. Like somebody actually if there was probably even like in their case like a lot of US people, they would have obviously picked that out kind of quickly than expecting like Revolut engineering team based in Europe to actually basically deploy this in the US and it's gonna work. So frankly I think even like the diversity that you bring from like opening that up also like it is honestly invaluable as well of like how much we learn from those guys and like what even worked in Europe and like what can be transferred in the US. So I think that's kind of basically it is kind of worth the tax, if you will, in tech, of like staying those like crazy hours to basically to get to hire from this like incredible pool of talent, and basically diversify the actual engineering and product management people working on the products.
I just loved when we talked about the day in your life, how, as you're going to sleep, other teams are waking up, and it felt like this is a startup, that's branching, multiple geographies, multiple time zones, and just you're straddling all of that. It was really impressive. Can
Thank
can
you so much,
we
Zach.
can we talk about the Oxygen tech stack? I believe one of the banking services on Bancorp Bank. I'm not necessarily asking you to comment on any of those pieces per se, but I'm just kind of curious how you're building this thing.
Yeah, that's a like amazing question also because honestly we did actually kind of Like it's not like it wasn't really a misfire as much as a learning lesson. I was like, because actually, frankly, we launched it earlier on another banking partner and another kind of basically like banking as a service kind of stack, if you will, and Zach, that went like popping up like everywhere now.
Hmm.
So, and then we realized honestly quickly that okay, like now we have this like brand promise that we're trying to deliver like differentiated products, differentiated experiences, and you end up basically like if we're like basically me and you that's like launching now on like a banking service provider, basically like we're gonna both end up with the same products at the end, like it or not, because that is kind of what we are like running on or like building on. And the other point also like basically also like if something even like goes wrong, you're now basically kind of you are kind of in a sense actually like you're trying to solve the customer problem by fighting with those kind of basically platform custodians, if you will, because like yeah, you can't really actually do anything on your side because the whole stack is basically is outsourced in a sense. So you end up frankly honestly not to pick up on many people actually are like doing that in a sense. It ends up frankly being like a marketing company, not like an
Hmm.
actual fintech company. So so that's even like we take that kind of now like as a thesis of like no white label, like frankly how bad we take it now as a thesis from our scars before, is that basically say we decide not to build a marketing company with like an Instagram account and basically outsource the like whole stack to somebody who's like printing cards, issuing cards, like
Hmm.
moving money on your behalf, kind of thing. So and then frankly, also with that also that kind of obviously it's much more work, but what you get as well, basically you start like putting those Lego pieces together from the best in everywhere, like from best in CIP, best basically in like CIP, even like this KYC on the consumer, KYB on the business. So who is the best vendor that you can basically work with from data providers on consumer basic CIP versus business, like basically on like card issuance, card printing, card manufacturing. So so honestly, right now, kind of Auction started basically owning a lot of this in house now, Zach, from this like earlier learning experience. And I think kind of like the two major advantages for us now, even like justifying to our investors, kind of why we took the whole thing down, like relaunched it again with our in-house kind of stack, was basically it's like yeah, like obviously you get to control the experience, and definitely the second part financially is that like the margins are much better, because again obviously like if you build this like white label service, you are not really actually honestly putting like lifting a finger at this point except for marketing. So and then again obviously those people would get compensated accordingly. So so the margins get super thin also to the point also like you can really offer like things like cashback or other perks, or you're gonna basically like now sending your VC money over to customers because you don't really have enough margins to offer those kind of competing services.
That's an interesting point, and that's one I've thought about a lot actually. Like, when we have community banks or even mid-size banks on the podcast, they all complain about their sort of captured status with core banking providers, and that they're sort of at the mercy of their schedules. The same thing's happening nowadays, just as at a platform level, where if you really hook your cart to a banking as a service provider, a platform provider, you are essentially, customizing their services. But at the end of the day, everyone's has the same services. It's interesting that
Exactly.
you point that out. So what's next for Oxygen? So like, where are you, I guess, in sort of your maturation curve as a company, and as touching customers, and where you headed, let's say in 2021?
Yes, thanks so much, Zach. So I think honestly for us as well, kind of as we still have this core thesis, but yet kind of it's not really actually materializing in even a better way. So so definitely our backlog as well is designed to cater to that segment. So for example, right now we have like invoicing also launched in private beta also, Zach. So basically we realize as well this person actually is coming out of like art school again for design, and that they're trying to bill a client or a photographer trying to invoice a client, and you have this person completely like disconnected from financial services and Zach, and they're trying to figure out, okay, like now we need an invoicing software like FreshBooks or Wave, and you need to hook this software to a merchant account. So do you want to use Stripe or Braintree or something else? And then basically like they are now tasked like somehow, despite being like this creative person, of like basically hooking up this like whole like plumbing to make their operation work, to just literally send you a professional looking invoice.
Mm-hmm.
So we start basically doubling down on those kind of add-on services also, Zach, like because like yeah, like this person should open an auction account, and they can tap a button and like basically send the invoice to Zach with us saying like, okay, like you want to pay like $1,000 for this person for like a UX design. You basically open a web page, you pay, the money shows up in the account like immediately. So that's kind of basically how we are even focused the backlog in general, also like about around that persona of like how can you solve more problems for this person, how can you help them basically like get paid in a sense. So for example, like also we had lending as well, which is as well like a line of credit product, which
Hmm.
is unfortunately got paused as well with COVID for kind of obvious like risk exposure.
Hmm.
So that also was kind of like definitely planning to like we can like definitely are planning to relaunch that also in the next couple of months also like again, given now we again we know this person actually is probably have this gaps in cash flow, they're waiting for the next gig or kind of
Sure.
basically like paid, and like now they're waiting on a net 30 invoice to get paid. So kind of that's we basically in a way also to answer like in with this rambling is that like we basically were trying to stay true to our core persona in a sense also Zach. But honestly, kind of to share with you, it's kind of one of like the like fun, amazing kind of outcome that happened is actually kind of like we like to compare ourselves like to Mac now. Is that like basically it's probably me and you now are on Mac, despite like it's not really built for us kind of thing. It's actually built for like filmmakers and photographers and musicians and graphic artists. But yet, yeah, like why would you pick up another product now if you can like get this like amazing machine like with aluminum and black glass and amazing technology? So frankly, that was also kind of what we like gladly found out. Also, like basically like when we started basically targeting the persona properly, we started picking up a lot of organic users who are not even part of this like auction thesis,
Hmm.
but yet are coming for the functions, feature set, like
Mm.
branding experience. So that's kind of was the exciting part as well of like. But again, it's like if Apple, for example, lost focus of their kind of core like this like Adobe like Final Cut Pro persona,
Hmm.
probably it would have lost the game most times. So kind of basically we always keep reminding ourselves that is that like we can't lose focus of the our core kind of passionate kind of cult of a segment, and start basically catering for like this horizontal banking service like other players in the space who are basically not like focused on a specific niche per se.
I like that. And we have time for one last question. How do you market? How do you bring in new customers? That persona that you just described so in detail.
Yeah, actually, which is amazing, honestly exciting. Honestly, because like you imagine that it is more like it sounds like a tiny niche of like why would you build a bank for this kind of around this persona, which actually, frankly, even like the like one of the co-founders of Patreon is investing in Auction. The founder of Teachable.com is again one of our investors. So all these marketplaces also like are like basically are kind of honestly like they are like 100% our ideal customer per se. Is that those people are like growing from this like freelancer like looking for a freelance marketplace and then basically growing to become an agency on the marketplace as well. So we have a lot of partners also Zach, this like B2B to C model is that basically we go after this like amazing marketplaces, we partner with them, the founders, incredible founders behind them as well, and they can see exactly because I guess you can put to your point Zach, like basically if you're running such a marketplace, you know exactly what is the pain points of your customer. And then one of like the points also that we found out also on that note, even like to touch on it, also Zach, was kind of like, again back to the banking and service providers as you mentioned, is that like all these marketplaces now is wondering like back to the thesis of like every company is going to be a fintech company. It's like yeah, should I really issue a debit card? And frankly, honestly, our selling point as well to those kind of like partners in a sense that like yeah you're gonna basically ship this like bare minimum like obviously like honestly crippled account or like or service that you yourself is not gonna use or any of your team members. So that's just like partner with a properly built out like fully like built kind of deep product, then basically like slapping a debit card on your marketplace or offering it as an additional add-on service that you know that yourself actually it's not that good to even offer as an actual business account that support that. So I think that would be like for us also was like a big part of the strategy is that like there's a lot of pool of people, of concentrated pool of people that you can go after with this like high marketing precision in a sense of Zach without basically being like going after horizontally or competing with horizontal players in the space. Uh, Yeah, so you don't really have to start bidding or like optimizing for keywords like digital banking or free bank or like free
Mm-hmm.
like no fees banking, because you can imagine also like right now with this people like all big players with a war chest of money basically. It's just like basically you're like it's a lost fight in a sense to actually go compete on those kind of keywords now with a horizontal offering, given like all these amazing successful players in the space at the moment.
That makes a lot of sense. Hussein, thank you for joining us on the Tearsheet Podcast today.
Thanks so much, Zachary. I appreciate it.